Case 7. This is a 3-year-old boy who had fever for 12 days. Initially, he had urticaria-like rashes. He received prednisolone and ceftriaxone. As you see here in the fingers, the toes, he developed almost like cutaneous gangrene. As you can see here, blackish discoloration. He was referred as probable scrub typhus with vasculitis. He had a cutaneous gangrene like this, and he had a high leukocyte count, high ESR, high CRP, high platelet count. We don't know whether this is infection or infection-induced vasculitis or non-infectious vasculitis. We are not sure what it is. And look at the picture. Of course, he had cheilitis. He was irritable. And of course, he had a characteristic BCG erythema, which is one of the characteristic findings in Kawasaki. The only other conditions in which you can get BCG erythema is influenza, and they have reported in COVID-19 without MIS-C also. Of course, MIS-C it can occur. It can occur in yellow fever also. This has been reported in literature, but this is actually a Kawasaki. Kawasaki is one diagnosis which pediatricians have a tendency to think of pretty late. In fact, I can tell you from my own personal experience, the first Kawasaki I diagnosed maybe 25 years, 24 years back. I had to call the dermatologist, I had to call the cardiologist, I had to call the rheumatologist, I had to call the nephrologist before I put a label on Kawasaki. Now it is not so. Pediatricians do diagnose Kawasaki pretty early. Pediatricians have learned that they should make a diagnosis of Kawasaki before finding out echocardiographic proof of Kawasaki. In fact, it is our duty to pick up Kawasaki before echo changes appear. It's a clinical diagnosis. And you should give IVIG the moment you diagnose. And there are no clear-cut laboratory or diagnostic markers for Kawasaki. It can be misleading. And the biggest problem in Kawasaki is that the signs keep on changing. In fact, by the time they come to you on day 7 or 8, the eye redness might have disappeared. Even the lymph node might have disappeared. The transient rash also might have disappeared. So things keep on changing. And another important thing you must remember is that it is well known Kawasaki can be associated with infections in 1/3 of children. I have seen pneumococcal pneumonia with Kawasaki. I have seen staphylococcal abscess in the neck in Kawasaki. So you can have co-infections. It is reported that nearly 1/3 of children with Kawasaki have comorbid infections, including UTI, pneumonia, etc. Of course, one clue which you may get, which perhaps you don't get in any other disease other than perhaps scarlet fever, this sort of periangual peeling is extremely characteristic of Kawasaki. Sometimes what can happen is that children may develop fever. They may have scarlet fever-like illness with strawberry tongue. They may become afebrile. 1 week later, they may come to you with peeling like that. It is imperative that you should do echo to look for any coronary changes and give aspirin for these children. The typical strawberry tongue. And of course, strawberry tongue is not always Kawasaki. There are 6 or 7 conditions which can cause strawberry tongue, which include the white strawberry tongue of scarlet fever, yellow fever. You can get in perianal streptococcal dermatitis. You can get in Yersinia pseudotuberculosis, which can present like an abdominal mass, appendicitis-like syndrome with fever and strawberry tongue. All these conditions can mimic Kawasaki. Look at the same boy, he had dorsal edema, which again is one of the features of Kawasaki. As you see here, he had even abdominal wall edema. This again, in our series from our hospital, one of the interesting things we found that those who had an early diagnosis of Kawasaki presented to a tertiary care hospital early. Those who had a delayed diagnosis, they came to the hospital late. So awareness of Kawasaki was probably responsible in such a report in the year 2012. But I'm sure now things are far better. Pediatricians are easily diagnosing Kawasaki without missing a diagnosis. In fact, the other mistake often pediatricians tend to make is to look for thrombocytosis, wait for thrombocytosis. You need not have thrombocytosis. You can have thrombocytopenia, in fact, which is a poor prognostic factor, right? Today, there are several centers in the world where in young infants below 1 year, they find anemia, they find thrombocytopenia. In addition to giving intravenous immunoglobulin, they also add steroids, methylprednisolone in dose of 30 milligram per kg for 3 days, because these children have adverse prognosis. Case number 8. This was a young infant again